Hello, wonderful students. Mr. Baratic here. Last week, we took a look at the Baroque era, and specifically, we listened to George Frederick Handel and Johann Sebastian Bach. That is the era from 1600 to 1750. This week, we're taking a look at the classical era of Western European music. And the term classical is used in different ways. When some people refer to classical music, they mean serious music, as opposed to popular or folk music. But when musicians use the term classical music, they mean music written between 1750 and 1825. The music of this era can best be described as elegant, formal, and restrained. For the first time, instrumental music was more important than vocal music. In fact, the most important new musical form of the classical era was the symphony. The symphony is an extended work in several movements, often four, but sometimes more, for orchestra. The symphony grew out of the sonata. The sonata was a popular form of the Baroque era. A sonata is a work for solo instrument, either alone or accompanied. In a symphony, there is no solo instrument, and the orchestra becomes the instrument for the composer. So, a symphony could be described as a sonata for orchestra. Another classical form which evolved from the sonata is the concerto. A concerto is a sonata for a solo instrument accompanied by an orchestra. The classical orchestra was very similar to today's orchestra, though smaller in size. The instruments were basically the same as those in a modern orchestra. The string instruments were identical to today's violins, violas, cellos, and string basses. The string section was the most important part of the classical orchestra. Woodwind and brass instruments had also evolved and were similar of today's flutes, oboes, clarinets, horns, trumpets, and trombones. Percussion instruments included drums, cymbals, and timpani. So, I'm going to stop there, and I want you to ensure that you have finished the document that highlights all the important developments that happened during the classical era as we progress from era to era. Okay, so you can kind of get this big picture in the end as to how Western European music evolved throughout the centuries. Okay, let's move forward and let's take a specific look at each composition that you'll need to understand for your quiz, your listening quiz. Okay, so there are 4 pieces by Mozart and 4 pieces by Beethoven. Those listening links have been embedded in your assignments that are posted on Google Classroom. So you should be all set, but I'm going to include in this video the actual listening quiz at the end of the video. But first, let's review the pieces. Okay, so first we have Mozart's Symphony number 40. And the melody, the shape of the melody is basically this. Okay, so as you're studying these pieces and you're trying to get them in your head and memorize them, focus hard on those melodies. Even as the melodies evolve throughout the piece, the basic motif remains the same. The motif for this piece, all right, those 2 notes, they evolve and they develop into a larger theme. Okay, so listen for that. All right, let's listen to a little bit, maybe 30 seconds right now, of this recording. Okay, we'll stop there. Moving forward, the second listening example that I have for you for Mozart is his Piano Concerto number 21 in C major. And it sounds like this. Okay, that's the basic shape of the melody. Let's listen to it. Okay, so I will pause that. And because it is a piano concerto, if we were to continue listening, which of course you're doing at home, you would hear the piano enter, and the concerto features the piano as the solo instrument in that piece. Okay, moving on. Number 3, this is the overture to one of his operas, The Marriage of Figaro. And there is no vocal part during this. It's essentially the music that happens before the opera. Let's just listen to it. Okay, so that's the basic melody. So when you hear this part of the melody that goes, okay, all those fast moving parts, but then the bum bum ba da ba da ba bum ba ba bum 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 bum, The Marriage of Figaro. Okay, that's the third example. The fourth example. The fourth example is from another one of his operas, and this is from The Magic Flute. This is an aria, and it's the Queen of the Night, and it is just an amazing technical feat that anyone can sing this part. It's really high, she's singing falsetto, and she has total control of her voice. The melody sounds something like this. Okay, everything I just played in my right hand, the soloist singing the aria is going to sing for you. Let's grab it, listen to it. And of course, again, I remind you to listen to all of these examples at home before you take the quiz. Okay, so that is a very exciting piece of music, and I know you'll enjoy watching the whole 5-minute clip on your own time. And moving forward to Beethoven. So the 4 pieces that I've included are a combination of symphonic pieces and piano music. The first one is one of his most popular. It's the first movement from the Moonlight Sonata, and it sounds a little bit like this. So that's the basic motif and the basic melody. Let's listen to a little bit. Okay, so I'll stop there, and please listen to that at home. The next piece, you've all heard of this one, I'm fairly certain, For Elise. Okay, I won't play an example of that. I want you to listen to it at home, and please listen to it all the way through, because there is a third and final section in the key of F major that most students, they don't ever get a chance to hear that. So please check it out. It's very contrasting. Okay, then the ever popular and famous Fifth Symphony is the next listening example of the Fifth Symphony that he wrote in response to Napoleon knocking on the door of all neighboring countries. Bum, 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 bum. Let's listen to a little bit. Okay, so another fantastic example of motivic development during the classical era. That little motif, right? It evolves throughout the entire first movement of the symphony. Okay, motivic development, a tiny little musical idea that is developed over the passage of time in a piece of music. Okay, so then the last one, this is called the Pathetique Sonata, another one of his piano sonatas, and it is the second movement, the middle movement in the key of A flat major. Just a beautiful, happy melody, very elegant, very refined. Okay, and it goes on and on and on, changes keys many times, but it always comes back to that motif that you just heard. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is end this video and create another one for you that will represent your listening test, so we don't confuse the two, and you'll have a clean start. You can check out this video and listen to the listening examples on your own at home, and then you'll be positioned for success when you take your test, your listening test. Bear in mind, I won't be starting the pieces at the beginning of the recordings at all. Okay, so I'll be starting them somewhere in the middle, maybe somewhere near the end, somewhere in between. But if you're always focused on hearing the motif of the piece, the basic shell of the melody as it evolves throughout the piece, if you do that, you'll do very well on these exams. Okay, so I will see you in the next video. and we will take our listening quiz on the classical era.